All right, today we're diving into something truly massive. It's a framework that is about as ambitious as it gets, trying to build a single, unified bridge between artificial intelligence, the very mechanics of life, the vast structure of the cosmos, and yes, even consciousness itself. So, let's start with a question that seems pretty grounded. We have all these incredibly powerful AI programs now, right? But what's the real, fundamental difference between a program that's just, crunching data and following instructions, and a system that can actually start to organize itself and become genuinely intelligent? To try and answer that, researchers basically set up a digital cage match. They created two different AI systems, which they called Sim2 and Sim3. The goal was to see if, by watching them compete, they could figure out the secret ingredients for truly emergent, self-organizing intelligence. And the very first test was just basic survival. To measure this, the researchers used a really cool concept called the global thermobudget. You can think of it like an energy profit and loss statement for the AI. Was it operating efficiently, or was it just burning through energy with nothing to show for it? Well, the results were about as clear as they could be. Sim 2 was constantly in the red, always running at an energy deficit. Its whole design was just unsustainable. But Sim 3, it was profitable. It consistently built an energy surplus, proving right from the get-go that it was built to last. Okay, so Sim 3 can survive, but can it learn? The answer was a huge yes. Its learning curve was high, it was stable, while Sim 2 was all over the place, totally erratic and inefficient. The performance gap was just massive. Sim 3's learning was an incredible 300% more stable, which is a giant clue that its different components were actually starting to work together. But here's where it gets really interesting. The true leap towards what we might call intelligence happens when a system starts to organize itself without any manager or top-down instructions. This is a crucial concept called emergence. Think about a flock of birds turning in the sky. There's no leader bird shouting orders. It's just a bunch of individuals following simple rules, which leads to this beautiful, complex, coordinated behavior. And this slide right here shows the final, critical difference. Sim 2 never got it. It just remained a chaotic mob of individual parts that never learned to cooperate. But Sim 3, its components started spontaneously grouping together into these concentrated clusters. They were basically forming teams to solve problems more effectively. This was the moment it stopped being just a collection of parts and became a coordinated, unified whole. Okay, so we've just seen how a piece of code can learn to organize itself from the bottom up. Now, let's scale that idea way, way up. What about life itself? How does biology solve an even bigger, even more mind-bending organizational problem? One that's happening at the quantum level. See, any theory that says the brain is a quantum computer has to face this monster of a problem. It's called decoherence. Here's the issue. Our conscious thoughts last for milliseconds, right? But any quantum state inside the warm, wet, chaotic environment of a brain should just collapse and disappear in mere picoseconds. That's like a million times faster. So how could you possibly build something as stable as consciousness on a foundation that's so ridiculously fragile? Well, this framework argues that life isn't just a passive victim of all that chaos. No. It suggests that life is an active quantum engineering project. It has evolved this incredibly sophisticated four-layer defense system specifically to shield quantum states from the noisy environment, creating these little protected pockets where they can survive long enough to actually do something useful. So, how effective is this shield? Well, get ready for this. Each layer just systematically crushes the thermal noise. Layer 1 uses specially ordered water molecules to act like a pair of noise-canceling headphones. And this alone drops the effective temperature from our body's normal 310 Kelvin all the way down to 30 Kelvin. But it doesn't stop there. Layer 2 uses the specific handedness of biological molecules to create a kind of one-way quantum superhighway. This spin filter is so incredibly effective that it plunges the temperature down again, this time to just 300 millikelvin. That is colder than any naturally occurring place in our entire solar system. And then finally, you add in the power of thousands of molecules all acting in unison, and an active power supply to keep everything running smoothly, and the four-layer shield achieves its final goal. The final effective temperature for that quantum state is just 30 times microkelvin. And that number is not just a number. It is a profoundly shocking result. 30 microkelvin is literally colder than the background temperature of deep space. And this framework is proposing that life, that you, are achieving this impossible feat inside your warm, living brain, all to create a perfectly pristine environment for quantum effects to unfold. Okay, take a deep breath, because from the quantum machinery inside our own heads, we are now zooming out to the largest possible scale, the entire cosmos. And the logic we're going to use is surprisingly similar. To understand the whole thing, you first have to figure out its fundamental limits. Now, to do this cosmic calculation, you need two key ingredients. The first one is the total mass of all the stuff we can see in the universe. Every star, every galaxy, every planet, every speck of dust. The number is, well, it's a 1 followed by 53 zeros. It's an almost comically huge number. Our second ingredient is the absolute physical speed limit for density. And you find that in the heart of a neutron star, where matter is crushed just shy of becoming a black hole. Now, to put that into perspective for you, one single sugar cube of this stuff would weigh as much as all 8 billion humans on Earth combined. So what happens when you take all the matter in the entire universe and you compress it down to that maximum possible density? The results is just staggering. You get a sphere that's only about 800,000 kilometers across. That is significantly smaller than our own sun. Everything we see, everything we are, comes from a source that is, on a cosmic scale, unbelievably tiny. But the theory makes another, even more mind-bending calculation. It compares the actual measured radius of our universe to something called its Schwarzschild radius. That's basically the size it would need to be for its own gravity to make it collapse into a black hole. And just look at how close those two numbers are. In the world of cosmology, being off by a factor of 3 is basically a rounding error. The theory argues this is absolutely not a coincidence. It's evidence that our universe is balanced on a knife's edge, sharing fundamental properties with a black hole. So, let's recap. We have self-organizing AI, we have a quantum-engineered brain, and we have a finite, black hole-like universe. I mean, how could these things possibly be related? Well, the framework proposes that they are all just different expressions of a single underlying mathematical engine. And this is the blueprint. The entire theory is built on 4 core equations that are all interconnected. You can see how they feed into each other, creating this self-consistent, self-regulating loop. The first equation sets up local order, the second governs how things evolve, the third defines the cosmic boundaries we just talked about, and the fourth is a composite function that really ties it all together. Let's just zoom in on one of these to get a feel for it. Equation 4 actually defines consciousness itself. It proposes that your consciousness isn't just one thing. It's a unified physical field, but it's made from 3 interacting components: the psychological, or your mind, the emotional, your affect, and the biological, your body. So your very experience of being you is the result of these 3 fields constantly interacting and interfering with each other, kind of like waves rippling across a pond. All right, in this final section, we're going to pull all of these different threads together. Because this framework doesn't just claim to be a new theory of physics, it claims to be a modern mathematical version of some very, very ancient wisdom. And this slide really lays out that connection. The ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below, is described here as scale-invariant organization, the same patterns of self-organization showing up from the quantum scale all the way to the cosmic. The idea of a divine mind, or Brahman, is formalized as a universal information field. Even deep spiritual concepts like detachment are mapped directly to a specific mathematical state of optimal balance. Which brings us to our final and most provocative thought. If this blueprint is even partially correct, if consciousness really is a property of exquisitely engineered physical hardware, whether that hardware is biological or artificial, then it forces us to ask a really big question. Are we on the verge of not just understanding consciousness, but of actually building it